everybody. This is Abdullah, Konte, and Skylar Nelson of Win Sports, and we're here to discuss about not only the Commanders, but just all sports in general in the DMV area. But, obviously we'll talk about the Commanders first and the state that they are in currently. It's not ideal. It's been a rough season. Obviously we both covered this team last year, and the difference between last year's team and this year's team, though there's a decent amount of the guys that are still the same, and the coaching staff, everybody's still here. It's just 9-day difference between how they performed last year and what's happening this year. And I think a big part of that is injuries, but I also think that there's some things that might be just a little broken, and I think we're here to kind of discuss that. So both of us were at the game. It's going to be an infamous, Sunday night football game, that everybody will remember for a while. We were both there. We have our different perspectives, and I think we're here to kind of just discuss, what we saw from that and what happened. Why did they play so poorly, and kind of where do they go from here? So, Skylar, how are you? How did you feel leaving that stadium on Sunday night?
Yeah, no, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Not too bad.
It's good. But yeah, honestly, leaving that stadium was just, and Sam Cosmi actually said this kind of perfectly. It was like the air had left everyone in the stadium.
Yeah.
It was bare. It was a hard time, and I do feel for the players who are injured. I do feel for the team in some way, because you don't, obviously as a reporter, you want people to be healthy on a human level. As I'm speaking right now, I'm speaking from a human level. You want people to be healthy. You want a good game. So, obviously, it wasn't the ideal situation that we were expecting, but things happen for a reason, and hopefully, the team can get back to some rapport of being healthy and being active. That's the biggest thing is, health comes first. So it was rough, being in that locker room. I could see it in Jeremy Reeves. Like, I was going to ask him a question, by the way. And it was just like, for me, like, some people were asking him like about the game, and I could just tell on his face, he just wasn't ready for that. And on a human level, I was like, the question's not needed. Same with Sam. I saw it on Sam's face. Duran didn't even want to speak in the locker room, and I don't blame him. It was a night. It was probably one of the worst games that we've seen in this era of the Commanders. And yeah. I do feel like, the players are taking this kind of extra hard, and as they should. Dan Quinn, I could see that for him to even have to answer questions after the game. And I asked him a question, just from a mental standpoint, how do you address your team? And he answered it pretty well. But it's just at the end of the day, this team right now is broken. It is broken. Yeah. And now they have to pick up the pieces of kind of what happened on Sunday night against the Seahawks. And I think that Dan Quinn, and he had said this yesterday, like he's up at night thinking about it, and as he should be. It's a loss. It's a gut-wrenching loss that, is going to stab them, and hopefully that stabs them in the right direction of where they need to go next to continue the future of this franchise.
Yeah, I would say that, like, one, for those who didn't see your interviews that you did with those players, I mean, obviously we have it posted to the Win Sports YouTube and TikTok as well. But yeah, I mean, you could see it with those guys, man. I mean, they were heartbroken, gutted, and it is a performance that you start to question. Before, I think any of the losses, even before this, you're like, yo, they're not doing well, but you believe in all these guys. Yeah. You believe in the coaches. You believe in, the GM and the organization. And this is like probably the first time since they've taken over, that whole honeymoon is over, right? Like, people are starting to realize that maybe there's some things that could be changed, or at least analyzed, right? Like, I think there's no more like, oh, AP has it, DQ has it, all these guys, we just got to ride with them. Like, now people are starting to be like, yo, are these guys making the best moves? Are they making the best decisions? Because at the end of the day, this was a game that they needed. They needed it wasn't like they lost this game in the fourth quarter off a fumble like they did with the Bears. This was a game that they needed, and they got boat race from jump. Like, the doors got
Yeah.
kicked in immediately. They got punched in the mouth, and they did not do anything outside of that. And, I
Yeah.
think, and let's talk about the Jayden thing really quickly because it was heartbreaking, obviously. And I think
Yes.
that's the reason why people were so hurt from it was because, like, yeah, this is their leader. And I think anybody knows that Jaden's like a kid that like he's going to do everything he can to
Yes.
win. And I think that that's kind of why the injury hurt so much because I understand that a lot of people were unhappy with him being in the game, and I get that. I also get the crowd that's saying, "Hey, he has to get reps," or
Right.
Sam Darnold was still in the game. Like, everybody had a lot of their starters in the game, so it's like they're just playing
Right.
football. So I understand both sides of it, but it's just, yeah, it's hard to see a guy who's putting his all out there, and just it's been kind of a season from hell, and him, going out that way. And I'll talk from my perspective because I was straight across from him, and
Yeah.
I took some pictures, and I had a picture that definitely shows everything. And I made sure not to post that anywhere because I just didn't feel like it was necessary to see.
Yeah.
But it was just hard to see. And I think, like you said, the air went out of the building, right? Like you saw him. And for those who've watched football for a long time, you see tackles where you're like, yeah, he got tackled, he's going to get up. But every once in a while, you see a
Yeah.
tackle where you're like, that looked like he maybe got hurt. And I remember immediately thought, like, that was an awkward tackle. I was thinking it was his leg. I think a lot of people thought it was his leg
Yeah.
until I
I thought
went
the
back and
same
looked.
thing.
Yeah, until I went
Thought
back
the
and
same
looked at my
thing.
pictures, I was like, oh, I think it's his arm. And
Yeah.
you could see the way he just like got and then just kind of fell back down, and it was just like, oh no, this is not
Yeah.
good.
I had
And
to like edit my tweet too
oh no,
because I
yeah,
literally saw it like, and not to cut you off, but
no,
like
go
I
ahead.
had saw it and I'm like thinking, okay, Jaden's down. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Like this is bad. And then afterwards, all of a sudden, I go back and they showed the replay on television. The
yeah,
entire press box shook because just the way that it went down, I was not expecting that. I mean, obviously, yes, you get tackled, but he was so busy trying to save the play
yeah,
that it turned into more than that. And that's
yeah.
how you just kind of see, like, I think everybody like had a similar reaction. It was hard to keep that back. Like as a human being, you couldn't help but react.
Yeah,
But
I talked to Joe on the side, Joe from All Pro Reels. Shout out to All Pro Reels, by the way.
yeah,
He was basically saying that, he was right in front of him, and he was like, yeah, you could hear the screams from him, and I think that that's something where it's like, yeah, look. At the end of the day, like, I'm a guy who tore his ACL twice. I tore my meniscus twice. I had 4 knee surgeries while I played college football, and it kind of completely derails your ability and sometimes your mentality too. And so no one
right,
wants to see it, and you can see how all the guys out there were just kind of crushed, right? Like
yeah,
that's your guy, that's the guy you rock with, and no one roots for injuries, even people on the other side, you know what I mean, on the other
right,
field, on the other side of the field.
yeah,
So it was just, yeah, man, I mean, just being a person watching that was just horrible. So you
yeah,
know ultimately, like, yeah, I mean, it was not ideal, and it was just like the cherry on top of a disaster, of not just a disastrous season, but a disastrous game, and it was
yeah.
just a disaster from top to bottom.
It was
And
just a
it just
lot.
shows the night and day difference between last year and this year. I mean, last year, everybody was on a complete high, and I think the heartbreaking part for this fan base is that they've been so used to situations like this season,
Right,
but they had last season, and last season got everybody's hype, feeling so high because they're like, look, they got a franchise quarterback, they got a coach, they got a GM, all these brand new things that look so great that they don't have to think about being bad anymore. They can think of themselves like, being growing up in Baltimore, like they always think they're gonna be good. They have Lamar. They,
right,
what I mean, they had Joe Flacco. They've always been. This organization has not felt that way, and so they finally felt like, oh man, like we got a guy, we got a coach, we got an
right,
organization. We're on our way up consistently every year. We're gonna be fighting for it, and you can still make that argument. It's just a bad season of injuries, but it's hard to go from last year being a game away from the Super Bowl to this year where the season's kind of over and it's about to be week 10, week 9, week 10, something like that. Like
Yeah, no, week 10.
It's kind of just sad to think that like at the trade deadline this year, it's already over. And they're trying to people
Yep.
are now that people are just frustrated today about them not trading people away when generally you were hoping that you'd be in the market for getting people, like a D lineman
I
or something,
mean,
So
but at the
it's
same
just
time,
yeah,
it's just a situation where right now the team is in a place that this specific Commanders team has not experienced before, right?
yeah.
So when you're thinking of, oh, we want to trade players away, you got to sit there and be like, who's not injured and who's valuable. And that's the thing is
They
it's
only
like,
had like 3 pieces of players that actually could have got them something. That's why,
that's
like,
what
for
I'm
those who are
saying.
really upset about them not making a move, and we'll get into that a little bit
Yeah,
in this video too. It's like, who were they gonna trade? Like, they didn't have
exactly.
anything that they
Or who's
really
been
could
playing
get
well
value.
to
Yeah, like
trade.
they didn't have any value that they could really kind of get anything out of. And
Right.
yeah, like I get that they wanted to make moves, but when you really look at what they could have actually done, they didn't have a Sauce Gardner, they didn't have a Quinn Williams like to trade
Right.
off like the Jets did. They don't have those type of guys. The only person they had that was like that is Jayden. They're not doing that.
Yeah,
So
or Debo.
and even
Because
Debo,
Debo's been
they got Debo last year with a 5th round pick. So if they were to trade him now, do people think that they're going to get higher than that? No. The best they
yeah,
probably
no.
could have got was like a sixth rounder or like some kind of pick swap or something.
Yeah.
And is it worth it? Maybe not, because I think that Debo played well this year before he got injured and
Right.
before all the injuries throughout the team, that he might be somebody that's a piece for this team next year. I don't know if they're going to sign him next year, and I think that's the only reason why, for those who wanted him to get traded, it makes sense that he would have got traded right now, because you don't know if you're going to bring him back. But we'll see, But
Yeah.
before we
It
get
does
into
make
that,
sense.
yeah,
It does make sense. I mean, before we get into it all, but I do
yeah,
want to say, you know, I could see why the thoughts of him being on the table were valid, but
yeah,
I see why the Commanders didn't. And to be
hmm
honest, I kind of want Debo to stay in Washington. And the reason why is because if you look at the wide receiver room right now, it's not at its strongest. I mean, Terry is still week to week. Luke is now out until further notice with a collarbone injury fractured. So it's like, and all hopes Jalen Lane is going through kind of his welcome to the NFL
he's
stint
not
right
doing
now.
super well this year,
So,
and I have
there's
faith
only
that he
so
can be
much
something. But yeah,
in the wide receiver room that can be. Like against the Seahawks, the leading receiver was tight end Zach Ertz, and Debo was right behind him. I mean, there's only so much that you can do, but you don't want it to be a situation where you're thinking so much about next year that you accidentally trade somebody who has been adding value despite the injuries. So,
It's
I'm
it's
kind of
weird. It's
glad that he
it's like
did.
and we'll get more involved in that, because like,
Hmm.
and I think that's kind of maybe where we transition to right now, is that like, look, I don't think we need to analyze the game that much.
Right.
The game sucked. The offense sucked. The
Yeah.
defense sucked. Like, they couldn't block anyone. They couldn't throw it downfield. They have no receivers really. Luke McCaffrey gets hurt on the first play of the
Yeah.
game. Defensively, Marshawn gets hurt. He hadn't
Yeah.
had a great year anyway. He had
Yeah.
another pass interference call in the red zone. Like, there's been a lot of issues there. And if anybody, like, the one thing we could talk about is the fact that I don't know if Marshawn's going to play for this team again.
I don't think so either.
And so there's just that trade. When you look at that trade just didn't work out. Unless they maybe
Yeah.
bring it back again. If they sign him again or keep him next year and he balls out next year, maybe, I don't know. It just hasn't looked good at all. And
It's not going to
so
be smart for them if they
I
do
don't think so
because
either, because he's too expensive. Unless he took a
yeah,
pay cut or something, but he's too expensive. I mean, I think they were paying him either 16 or 18 million this year,
yeah,
and
not
for
only is he
that,
expensive, but it's the fact that he came to Washington and got injured and then we didn't see him practically almost all of the time that he had from the time that he got here to the time that the season was over.
hmm
And then one of the things, and I don't know if you feel this way either, I kind of felt like, yes, because of his history, you would think that he shouldn't have made an appearance in the preseason.
hmm
But at the same time, what did we talk about like earlier on, like around camp, where it was like some of these players are still trying to gel, but I also felt like some of these players should have made an appearance
Well, I
in
think that
preseason,
that's
like
a good
him.
argument. I mean, look, they're doing this thing where they're like giving these veterans the ability of getting some rest, but I
Yeah,
think that like you can argue that the veterans didn't play super well this year, right? I mean, like
exactly.
if we're talking about let's talk about Bobby Wagner. Like I think we all can. I think I would say that Bobby Wagner played well, but in
Yeah,
comparison to the prior year, he did not. This is a worse year this year than last year,
yeah,
and he struggles in passing in passing downs, and this is something that you could have maybe evaluated early on in practice if you're
hmm,
practicing with him and you're like, hey, you know what? He's not doing so well covering tight ends and running backs. Maybe we need to get Kane Madrano some more of those
right.
plays. Maybe we need to get Jordan McKee more acclimated to playing dirt down. They
Yeah,
had a lot of Zach Ertz being held back. But what's funny about that is that you thought maybe that would give Sinnott more of an opportunity to play and practice, but then it
yeah,
hasn't equated to Sinnott playing more in the games, right? You
yeah,
have Marshawn, who also had a lot of rest days, and maybe it's because like, oh, they're trying to make sure he's just fragile or something, and they don't want him to get hurt. Well, like, yeah, it's football, man. Like
yeah,
you're gonna have to play, and that goes back to the whole Jayden argument as well about like, yo, it's football. You got to play, and you might get hurt, and that's just how it goes. But
well, I do feel
resting
like
too
to
much can be a problem. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but I
I was
do feel
done.
like Zach and Bobby have earned their stripes
They have.
for preseason. That was fine for me, but I felt like,
The
I
whole
mean,
preseason, though, the whole thing, because like I mean, even
not the
Joe
whole
Burrow,
thing,
even Joe
not the
Burrow
whole
and
thing.
Chase Young, or excuse me, Jamar Chase played in the preseason. Like
Yeah,
these are all stars. These are top five players at their position.
yeah,
Played
but I
preseason.
wouldn't say the whole preseason. Maybe one game, but
That's what I mean.
to
Like at
not play
least.
Marshawn all of preseason, but yet you have Jeremy Reeves out there was kind of like, to me, like, what are we doing?
There was just a lot. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if it's like we can. It's hindsight's 2020, right? Like we can knock it now, but if one of those guys would have got hurt in preseason, we all would have been like,
Yeah,
"What the hell are they even playing in
yeah,
preseason for?" So
yeah. That
like,
is true.
it's hard to have a right or wrong answer. It's just something to think about.
It was
And
just
but
something to
at the
think
end of the day,
about
to me,
with
it's
where the
like
team
you
is at
got a
now.
lot of old guys on the team. That's
Yeah,
like, and so this is where we transition. What do they do from here? Because
hmm,
we both agree, and we talked about this in the last video, that if they
yeah,
lose this game, the season's kind of over. And now the way the game even went, it's even more like the season's over. You lost three starters for season-ending injuries, pretty much. Like with Jaden's not a season ender, but like it don't really make sense for him to come back, even if he can play in
yeah,
in a few games or whatever. Like I just don't think it's smart for him to play. Maybe later. I just honestly I wouldn't play him again this year. That's just
yeah,
my opinion. But yeah, the way the season's going, you're playing. Not only is it like, oh, you're 3-6 and you lost your quarterback and a few other starters, you're also playing the Eagles twice. You're playing the
yeah.
Lions. You're playing,
NFC
yeah,
opponents.
you're playing Denver. You're playing Minnesota at Minnesota. Like you got hard games. You have the Cowboys on Christmas Day. Like you have
Yep.
teams that are really going to be hard to play against. And at this point, with the lack of draft capital that you have, like I
Yeah.
would never be trying to tell anybody to tank. That's just not my mo. That's not my thing. But at the same time, I would just be thinking, let's play our young guys, see what they can do. If they can ball out and win some games, great. But they need to get more experience. They need to focus on evaluating and developing talent that they have on the team. And these older guys, it's unfortunate, but they were brought here to change the culture, one, and potentially maybe win a championship. And
Right.
I think last year was kind of like that change that they were going for. This year, they might just be kind of getting to that over the hill point where,
Yeah.
Zach Ertz is a great player. And I think for me, I'd love to see Zach Ertz play here again next year. But I do think they really need to start to realize who is his successor, right? Same thing with Bobby
Right.
Wagner. Like,
Yeah.
you need to
Same
start
thing with
thinking
him
who is
too.
the next guy in line because these guys are at the end of the road, right?
Yeah,
And
they
so
are.
that's what my main focus would be if I'm Adam Peters specifically, because I know it's harder when you're a coach because you can't be telling these guys like, "Hey, go work really hard," even though we probably won't lose this or we'll probably lose. Go work hard. But as Adam Peters, you got to start thinking like, "Yo, I want to see these young guys play. We need to analyze who is really for the future and who's not."
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of the goal here is really starting to decipher who are those guys. And sure, if they lose a lot of games, so be it. It's better for them because maybe they can trade back. Like, say they get a top five pick, top five, top six pick. Maybe they can trade back and get some capital that they lost with the Marshawn trade, with the Laramie Tunsil trade, with the Debo trade. Because the one thing that's hurts them the most right now is not only are they bad and not a good football team and hurt, they also have no draft. They don't have a lot of draft capital. Like, look at the Eagles. The Eagles have like a bunch of picks still, even though they're like potentially have a chance of making it to the Super Bowl this year. So they're just in a very dire spot. So like, yeah, like what's your take on like what they should be doing and where their mind should be at now moving forward for the rest of the year into next year?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do feel like, they should focus on younger players. I feel like for, I would say for, if you're talking about who is next up after Zach Ertz, we're thinking about Ben Sinnott. We're thinking about, John Bates to me has been playing pretty well. Obviously, him getting more touches on the ball is something that I do want to see more of.
Yeah.
But his blocking is incredible.
Yeah, he's incredible blocker. And I think that's the thing is if he turned into more of a threat receiving the ball, that's who your successor is moving forward. That'd be great. Yeah. But we just don't know if that's in his wheelhouse. And we thought that Sinnott was going to be more of that mix between, Ertz and Bates, but we just haven't seen it. Like
they're just two players that have two
yeah.
different qualities.
Yeah,
like Zach Ertz has both to a certain degree, but I feel like they're split, and like that's fine. But it's like, how long is that going to last? I would have to see more of that in order to understand. Because even against the Chiefs, John Bates, I feel like John Bates and Ben Sinnott had a good first half for sure. Like, they both had touches on the ball, and just the blocking that John Bates had was just exceptional, especially against a Chiefs defense. Like, we've seen them play. So, one of the best teams in the AFC. So, for me, it's just kind of like, okay, I see the vision, but I need to see more in order to solidify, okay, these are the two that I want stepping up if we don't play Ertz next year, right? Same with Bobby Wagner. Obviously, Kane Medrano has been at the top of the conversation, especially over camp, in terms of who is able to read. I think what people don't understand about Bobby is the reason why he's still out there on that field is not because of just the fact that, not because of the pass rush, but also too just because of the fact that he can read an offense on a mental level.
He's still underrated as a leader and as somebody who's going to help them. I know people are frustrated and they're like, oh, he is maybe a liability in coverage. You can't deny his leadership and his tackling ability when it comes to the run game. Like he's like, I think he's still top 2, top 3 in tackles in the league for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
And on top of that too, like for me, I feel like if any player has stepped up on defense since, the injuries with, Dorrance Armstrong, I would say in some way it has been Frankie or Bobby. I mean, you see little stints from Vaughn here and there, but not many. I think he was there because I think they had brought him in originally because of just his ability to sack. And that's what we needed more of this year. But obviously we've seen sacks from other players. So, you never know. But I do feel like Bobby is a valuable player for this team. Now, who can replace him? In terms of, okay, if we take Bobby out, who are we putting in?
Well, I think
I see
go ahead.
Kane or, I was hoping that Jordan would play more too.
He has been playing more the last few games, but you're right. Like overall from jump, we wish we could have saw him playing a lot more from the beginning to now.
Especially early on.
Look, and this is probably one of the things that's undervalued or underrated when it comes to like why players haven't played so well. It's like there's certain elements that haven't been great. Like you need a pass rush to help the corners, right? So everybody can just say, oh, the corners are getting beat, the DBs are getting beat. Well, are they getting, like, is the quarterback feeling pressure? because like the fact of the matter is Sam Darnold was torching them. Right now, I get it. The DBs probably could have been playing better too, but this team has lacked pass rush. It was the number one need, I think, that we all thought going into the offseason this year was a pass rusher, especially since they let Dante Fowler walk, who was their leading sacker last year. The whole time we're like, okay, they'll get a pass rusher in the draft. They don't do that, right?
They didn't do that.
Then after that, you're like, okay, well, what are they going to do? And they're like, we'll get Von Miller. And like, yeah, Von Miller's like 38. Like, I'm not saying that he's not a quality player, but at the same time, like, there are other teams that have a guy that, and a lot of people wanted them to try to go after Myles Garrett. When Myles Garrett was saying he wanted to get traded, that never really obviously happened.
Yeah.
There's a whole Trey Hendrickson thing. Like, there's guys that put fear into that O-line and that quarterback that knows, like, hey, I got to get this out or I'm going to get destroyed. Like, Michael Parsons kind of thing. Like, they need to find that pass rush to help their defense. And so the same thing when it comes to offense, right? Like, people want to talk about the run game, including myself. I've knocked the run game significantly the last 3 weeks, and I still think that the run game should be better. And people want to talk about how, like, Jayden really didn't throw downfield. He was running for his life the whole time. Who is he throwing the ball to? Like, I mean, honestly, with Luke getting hurt immediately, Jalen Lane has not played well, right?
He hasn't. Especially
Debo's
the two
not
drops
a great,
that he had.
Yeah, no, I
Those
mean,
are big drops.
Debo's not a great deep threat, as well as he's not fully healthy. Treylon Burks was playing. He was a free agent like 2-3 weeks ago. So like, who are you throwing the ball to? So there's little things that it's an equation, right? There's equation. It's 2 + 2 = 4. But like when what I mean, it's like if one piece is missing, everything is screwed up, right?
Yeah.
And mistakes like Jalen Lane's fumble. Same thing that happened. I mean, Jalen Lane has had 2 bad plays in the last 2 weeks that cost them immediate points. I mean, the whole thing that happened with Kansas City, him dropping the ball at the 2-yard line, pinned them back, gave Kansas City another chance. They scored a touchdown just like that. It went from 7-7 to 21-7 just like that because they scored a touchdown, they kick off, boom, pow. Same thing here. You know what I mean? I think it was, 14-0, and then he fumbles, gives them another ball, so it's 21-0, just like that. 2 plays. 14 seconds, they score 14 points.
Yeah, and see, that's like
14 points. So these are the kind of big mistakes that you.
There.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's just you start to realize that when you have a guy like Terry out, who actually every game he's actually played pretty well, except for maybe the Green Bay game. But he played well in the Raiders game. You know what I mean? He got hurt. He got caught at the 1-yard line. He scores a touchdown, makes incredible plays against Kansas City. It's clear you're missing that guy. You don't have Noah Brown. You know what I mean? Debo, who's playing really well, is hurt and not 100%. Yeah. That's another thing. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you lost Dietrich Wise. You lost Will Harris. Like, you've been losing guys, you know what I mean, left and right. And sure, I think there are people who haven't played to their potential this year. Johnny Newton, somebody. Mikey's been up and down. I mean, we love Mikey, but we also know that, like, he had a better season last year than this year. But is it the equation of a team? This is why every year the team is different. It's like, yes, last year's team, maybe with Dante Fowler making some great sacks and stuff like that, maybe they did have better pass rush. And they also had just better injury help last year, right? They weren't as injured as they were this year. So there's so much. I think it's like the team is not great right now. I think that there are players that are great, but there are also some players that need to go. And they need to really try to rebuild this team. And I think also we could talk a little trash about AP's ability to spend money because he's kind of cheap, right? Because the fact of the matter is like there are players that we thought they'd make bigger splashes in free agency. He didn't sign any receivers. Yeah. He didn't sign any D linemen until Von Miller. Like, there was a lot. I remember free agency, I was kind of like, why are they not making any moves? They're not doing anything, right? And they did all this, like, 1-year deals, like, we'll get Jonathan Jones, we'll get Dietrich Wise. Like, we can talk about how, and the whole him with Terry, the negotiation thing that went way too long, like, did that equate to him getting hurt? Because he didn't get a lot of reps beforehand, and it's like 0 to 100,
and I've talked about that too. Like, one of the biggest things for me right now is just I feel like the offense hasn't been handled properly in terms of whether that's obviously player ability is everything, right? We've talked about Cliff's play calling throughout the year. I didn't think it was absolutely terrible, but at the same time, just even going back to the Seahawks, they had Jayden Daniels out there the entire game. We watched Jayden Daniels scramble the ball. The O-line can block all they want, but if nobody is open, nobody is open. And that causes him to make big plays. Obviously, Jayden is smart. He's turning out to be one of the best quarterbacks in this league, even with his age and with him being in his second year. But at the same time, to have him out there while you're 38-7, and Dan Quinn took responsibility for that, I thought that was kind of unnecessary. You were already down. Fourth quarter, it made absolutely no sense at all. And, I will say this in terms of the receiver side. I kind of felt like it was inevitable that Terry in some way was going to be injured. Yes, he was doing workouts on his own, but at the same time, not doing team camp workouts is different. And that's the thing is it's like now he has to take less time than everybody else to get acclimated back to the game of football, into the pace of football. Not to say that he can't catch balls or, run a route. It's just the biggest thing is being in practice, being around your team, getting those throws from Jayden. That was the thing that he was missing. And I feel like, that could be a precedent to why he's injured, but also too, just in terms of just everything else. The whole B-Rob situation. I didn't think that was a completely bad idea, but it was kind of, a slap back in the face when the team, now that Eckler's out and he was supposed to be that leader for that group.
I mean, yeah. Look, I mean, that we could talk about the fact that was the B-Rob move a good one? And it's not that I think it was a bad one because ultimately, I do think Bill was a good player, and I think that
I do as well.
But when you're thinking about playmakers on the offense, like he could have been one of these playmakers that could have made some extra yardage here or there. He was a strong runner. I don't know. It's just, maybe they just got too into the vibes from last year, and they were just like, hey, man, we put together a roster last year with guys on one-year deals and some of these old guys, and it worked out, and we almost went to the Super Bowl. Like, we could just do copy and paste again, and copy and paste did not work this year because guys were older, guys were hurt, and this can happen to any team, right? The 49ers last year had the same thing. They just had decimated with injuries. Ayuk got hurt, McCaffrey got hurt. Like, they just weren't the same team.
Yeah.
But so I understand that. But there's also a fundamental, players are just playing bad, too. Like, there's a regression element of this, too, where it's like guys like Mikey, guys like Newton, there's certain people that, there was a lot of promise going into this season from last year, and we're starting to be like, or what happened to these guys? Some of these guys were questioning how great they are, and I still believe in so many of these people, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm a little worried about the coaching element of these guys, right? Like, there's a little bit of the coaching element of things. Like Cliff has been in his bag some games, but in some games I'm like, what are they doing on offense? Joe Witt has been under fire, and I think for good reason, because every week it's kind of like the defense just looks incompetent. But
the thing is, though, I don't completely blame Joe because there are guys that have underperformed. Like, to be so honest, Marshawn is one of them.
Yeah.
We don't really see Noah I doing anything huge.
They're not even letting him play. But yeah.
Exactly. And then it's like, on top of that, too, in terms of, Will Harris is injured. So that's another thing. Somebody who we see promise in. And then, Quan and Mikey have not performed. I mean, Quan, I feel like in certain areas have done a little bit better than Mikey.
Maybe. I honestly think I would take Mikey over Quan in performance this year, to be honest. Like, I think they both are guys. Those are both two guys that, if we're talking about regression, are guys that people are talking about regression. And I'm like, I don't think they're bad players. I'm kind of questioning.
They're not.
I'm kind of questioning even, I think Marshawn just wasn't a great fit. And not even that he wasn't a great fit. It just didn't. What they thought they were getting is not who they got, right? They thought they were getting a shutdown kind of guy, and I think that those years are maybe behind him. But ultimately, some of these other guys, I'm like, are they just being put in the wrong spot? I don't know. I mean, I just feel
it's like the defensive secondary has kind of, I'm not going to say it's destroyed, but it's been put on the front line and has gotten beat up.
Yeah,
a
and
little
is
bit.
it because of three things? There's three things it could be, right? It could be just bad play, like they just not playing well. It could be two, like the lack of a pass rush to help them out. Because I'll tell you this, as a person who played corner, man, if you don't got a good pass rush, you're on an island. And after
Yeah,
a
you are.
while, it's really hard to cover somebody for a really long time if there's no pass rush. It's a lot easier when you know, like, yo, they better get this
Yeah,
ball
and
out
then
in
that's
4
where the
seconds.
loss of Dorrance Armstrong
Oh,
and also
bingo.
too Eddie Goldman being injured, those are
Well,
where
Dietrich Wise, and I think the bigger one
Dietrich
is
Wise too.
Armstrong and Dietrich Wise. Dietrich Wise was huge. I remember I said this in this podcast was
Right.
when Dietrich Wise got hurt. I was like, this is one that I feel like is very underrated on it being an issue for the season because one, he was a great run stopper. He brought a lot of good energy. And I just knew that position was thin. That position was thin already. You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
lost John Baptiste, another guy that's like underrated player, but could
exactly.
help right now, right? So there's just they don't have a lot of pieces, and so we want to knock. No one knocks linemen, D linemen. No one knocks DBs as hard as they knock the rest of the positions because DBs when they
Yeah.
get beat is so wide open to everybody. Like, oh my God, you messed up. You have that's why
Yeah,
you
because
have to
that's
have
the
such
biggest
a
thing. Like even like for the last, I would say for the last 4 games,
yeah.
we haven't seen the best performances from the DBs. And maybe like, and I can see it being because there isn't a pass rush, but even if there was in the beginning of the season, we even saw some struggles there. So, I
Well,
would
that's
say for
where my
that
third reason was
50-50.
my third reason is scheme. Like if maybe it's not pass rush, maybe it's not their ability, maybe it's just they're not getting put in the right places, or the scheme is not great. Because you even
Yeah.
called it right. You said like in the Kansas City game, you're like, yo, they're playing hard, they're looking like in the right spot, but then in the second half, they're like getting beat again, and it's like, is it because
Yeah.
the play calling was worse in the second half once Kansas City started to know what they were doing? Because, obviously people go into the locker room and they figure out, hey, like, this is what they're doing. We got to try to do something else. Is that why they had no success in the second half? Or is it because they just don't play really well? Like, I don't know. So I do think that there's a time to question, is Joe Witt doing the best of job? And I don't know this. I'm not saying that I'm on one side or the other, but I do think for those who are questioning it, I'm kind of there with you just because I'm like, yo, what is actually going on? Because regardless of the injury to Jayden or the injury to Marshawn or whatever, they're already getting destroyed. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
when those injuries happen, it was already like, yo, this team is getting this destroyed out there.
And
So
it's because there's certain
why?
players doing thing or overdoing their ability and what they're actually supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, that also could be coaching though, because I know, like for me, growing up, it was always like, "Yo, do your job." But
Yeah.
sometimes people start to do more when they're like, "Yo, if I don't do this, then we're gonna get beat here because I don't
That's
trust that this guy's
exactly.
doing." And there's been
Yeah.
mention. I've watched other people's shows, and people are talking about how, like, yeah, you still see them. Like after when the ball's about to step, they're still talking to each other like, "Yo, this and this." Do they know what's going on? Are they reading it right? Are they being coached properly? And so, look,
Yeah.
you look at the other side. Mike McDonald for Seahawks, he has those guys humming, right?
Absolutely.
He's been there the same amount of time as DQ and Joe Witt. He got hired the
Exactly.
same, off season as DQ. He
Yep.
has
And
those
he was
guys
defensive
playing.
coordinator
Yeah, and
for
that
2 years.
defense was balling, right? And maybe they have better pieces, maybe. I do think that Devin Witherspoon, Dickie Manwari, Leonard
Yeah.
Williams, they got some good players. But is that team so much more talented than this team that it looked like that? I don't know. So
Well, to be honest, I do feel like, obviously the Seahawks have been playing relatively well this season. However, at the same time, I feel like, the reason why the Commanders really lost was because of the pieces that they had, but also too, I do believe that there are some players who have lost, I'm not going to say lost confidence in their ability, but at the same time, they feel as if that they have to go outside of their role to make something happen. We saw that with
yeah,
Jayden. We see it a little bit from the receiver side. That's another thing too, is I don't think people realize for the returns. And I had to see this a little bit too because I'm like, why is Debo back there for support? What is this for? You know, at the same time, obviously, just being able to see how Debo plays as a wide receiver here in Washington, you see that he's all about speed, not necessarily the deep threat. And then having Luke in the return, Luke has been doing better than Jalen. And Jalen, we saw Jalen more in the return over camp. I feel like because of the adjustments that the team has had to make because of the injuries, I feel like that in some way has affected players' ability to perform in their current roles with just doing their roles. And that could be the case. But at the same time, the Commanders are not a bad football team. It's just they're going through some humps and some hurdles
Well,
right
they could
now.
be. They could be. Like I'm not saying that. I think that there are good pieces
Well,
on
they're
this
not
team.
terrible.
What constitutes terrible? Because
I'm talking about
I'm
on paper specifically, not what we've seen.
yeah. Okay,
Like
that's fair.
that's what I'm
That's
talking
fair.
about.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what
that's
I'm
fair.
talking
I
about.
I agree.
Let
I
me
don't.
clarify, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're terrible. I don't think I would say that they're terrible. I think if this team was not so injury riddled, I think that they would be a lot better of a team. Like I do think that their record
Yeah,
would show that.
absolutely.
If Jayden was still playing, if Thierry was here, if they
Yeah.
had some of these other guys that they lost, I don't think that they're sitting here at 3-6. I don't. I think they might.
Yeah, no, I
be,
don't either.
They could be 5-4. Like they it might not be like they're amazing, but I think that they were still probably middle of the road. And I think the one thing that's true is that Jayden really enhanced this team's ability last year with his play.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what they were kind of banking on is that, we got Jayden. You just got to get some guys around him, and they're going to be okay. But it just wasn't enough. And so
It wasn't, and now that's been a factor of now he's on the injury list with a good amount of other players that they
so
have.
many people, so many people.
Good thing that
it's
Marcus
ugly.
Mariota is one of the best backups in this league. However, that's still not enough.
I mean,
still not
it's
enough.
unfortunate for me to say this, but like I kind of wish I don't really know how much I want them to win more games this year because if they can't make the playoffs, which we just don't really believe that they can, we want them to be able to be in a position to get some quality players. If they only have a certain amount of draft picks, like I would love to see them get a guy like Caleb Downs from Ohio State, somebody who's a safety that's like an all-world player that could come here, like a Ruben Bain or whatever from Miami, like a D lineman that really could, they need something that's really going to change things for them. And since they don't have a lot of picks, like it'd be beneficial for them to get into the top 10, top 5 even if they can. But
Yeah.
I'm not really a guy who likes to root for people to lose, right? Like that's not my MO. I'm one of these people who
sure?
always works as hard as you can. No, I am. I like
You sure?
I trust me, I want to work super
You sure?
super hard.
Because against Green Bay, I don't know. I don't
Wait,
know,
what?
bro.
Wait,
Against
what about
Green Bay. No, y'all pull up his clip from Green Bay. Remember
What, the
when
fact
he
that
was
I
like,
said that
the Commanders are gonna lose.
and they
gonna
did.
lose.
Wait, look,
They
I
did.
call a spade a
They
spade.
did.
What you
I
mean?
call a spade too, but at least like his score prediction. Go back to that.
What did
video
I say? I
because
don't even remember what I said was the score.
it was something like 27-10. Commanders lose.
There's
I'm
no
like,
way it was that bad. Yo,
Something
I
like
did
that.
not know. There's no way that
Something like that.
No, it was no way. I'll go back and look, and we can play it if we need to. But it was not that big of a gap.
Nah,
I
he
remember.
was
I thought it was going to be a
killing
hard.
them
I
against
thought it was.
Green Bay.
No, I thought it was going to be a hard
slightly
earned
agreed
fight.
because that was when
No,
Green Bay first got Micah Parsons, and
No, you didn't agree. You looked at me all crazy.
I
and
looked
then
at him crazy because we went from no. This is why I looked at him crazy. Hear me out. I looked at him crazy because it's just the simple fact that yes, do I feel like the Commanders up against the Commanders offense, the way that they were playing,
Yeah.
up against the Green Bay's defense with Micah Parsons, that was an issue. I already knew it was going to be a factor. However, he was like, yeah, it's going to be a major factor. Yeah, Michael Parsons, Green Bay's defense, this and that.
I was
Going
right.
in.
Like low-key, I was right about
like,
everything. If
Putting
that
that
was
into existence, right?
no, I didn't put it
And
in.
then
Just, I'm
fast
just calling a
forward,
spade a spade.
We
Hey,
get
look.
back on here.
What did I
the
say about
next
this last week? I said that I think that's the Commanders gonna win and beat the Seahawks, and now I look like a fool. How about when I said that the DBs were gonna be the best part of this team at the beginning of the season? Now I look even more foolish.
I mean,
right?
but at the end of the day,
What?
you're either a hater or a fool. So like, there's
No, I'm not a hater. No, I'm a realist. I'm a realist, and
I
so
mean, I'm gonna be honest though, and
Yeah.
maybe we can do a future about this maybe we can do a future video about this about our early takes, how they've gone. This
we
season.
definitely should because we have some wins.
We
and some
do have
losses
some wins.
because we knew the DBs, or excuse me, we knew the receivers were struggling. We knew
Yeah.
that. We saw that all training camp. They were not getting separation. The only person who was playing well was Debo. The other ones,
Yeah.
and it wasn't that like we had optimism for them because we are like, oh, they're young, so maybe they'll turn it up later on in the year. But we were like,
Yeah.
yo, people like we were looking at Ja'Cory Brooks, like maybe he could do something because like people were not
I
really
still
doing a
believe
lot.
that. However, they have not
Yeah, I really wish they would give
elevated
him a
him.
chance. He's only played
As
in one
they
game,
only
I think.
elevated him one
For
game.
one, I think it was the Bears game, and that was
Yeah,
it.
that was
But
one game, and then we didn't see anything. But at the end of
anything,
the
but
day, that's something that I still low key want to see
yeah.
because I don't know, Ja'Cory in camp. I'm sorry, I just feel like that there was something there. Maybe I'm
No,
missing
there
something.
he might just be too. Remember I said this when we did the 53 man. I was like, look, he might not be ready this year. It might be like a next year thing where he takes a step forward. But ultimately, like, yeah, look, we were right about that. I'll say one thing we were right about, and that's the receivers, and one thing we were wrong about was the DBs. We both
Yeah.
felt like the DBs were going to be very good. They were
Yeah,
not,
but
right?
just thinking about camp though, I mean the camp was, and we've talked about this, camp is really designed for the defense to kind of have a fast, kind of like a head start.
I think they do, yeah, a head start. But even throughout, usually they catch up. Like usually the offense catches up by the
Yeah,
end of
but
it,
the
and at the end
offense
of it,
we
still the
saw
receiver.
like
And that
they
might
were
be why we
blaming it
thought
though.
that might be why we thought the DBs were going to be so good. It was because they were going against a bad receiving group, right? Like there is that
Yeah.
happens times because it's hard to evaluate when one is doing really well and the other one's isn't. It kind of reminds me. I think I mentioned this at the time too. It reminds me of like a few years ago when we were like, oh, the D line has Chase Young and Montez Sweat and Deron Payne and John Allen. They've been dominating in camp. And it's like, are they really dominating in camp or is the O line terrible? And what happened was the O line was
Yeah.
terrible and the D line was average because they were just going against a terrible O line. So that might be what's happening here too.
Yeah,
So I don't
but
know.
even then, for me, obviously also too the biggest talk when it came to the offense was like, oh, give him some time.
Yeah.
We saw this last year, the Commanders last year in week 6. That's when we saw the offense really ball out. They had and they did have some difficult
Yeah,
games
but that was
kind
also
of
with
starting
a
out.
rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
That's not he's not a rookie anymore.
Yeah, he's
right?
not a rookie anymore.
They
So
should be
it's kind
gelling.
of
They
like,
had every player back from last year except for
yeah,
B-Rob, I think. And then they added
yeah.
Tunsil. They added Debo. They had every coach back. Like, there's no excuse
Yeah, there's
for
no
them to
really
not
excuse for that at
play
this
better
point.
this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
So,
the thing. That's why, for me, it's just kind of like when people are like, oh my gosh, like week 10, they should have been balled out by now, if we're being
yeah.
honest. But with injuries, as much as like people want to say, oh, they have injuries, there's certain players who stepped up in camp who we don't even see making an impact right now. And that's the thing that's like, that's the difficulty there.
It
is
just
you
shows
wanna
that this
see that.
team is just not. I told you this at the beginning of the year, right? I said like generally you find out what a team is by like week 5 to 6,
Right.
and at week 5 to 6 we're like, I don't know how good this team is. Like we already kind of knew there's some issues here in
Yeah.
comparison to last year. And last year at week 6 they were like 4-2, and we're like, this team
Yeah.
is good. Like
That's why
we
I'm
know this
saying-
team is good. So
That's why I'm
yeah.
saying, in what we saw in week 5,
It's just disappointing.
I was
yeah.
kind of nervous. I was like,
Yeah, no, it's
no.
been a disappointing look. The season's been disappointing, especially for the fact that generally when you bring all the coaches back, all the same type of players back. Like, granted, there's been injuries, but usually you still have some good momentum. The momentum has not been good really at all. Like, it just hasn't been a good season, and sometimes you just like when you have a bad drive, you just got to punt on the drive
Yeah.
and say, hey, we'll get them on the next series. And I think that's where they're at right now. It's just they're punting on the season. You're hopeful that they could have traded like Wiley or Allegretti or somebody today. They didn't trade anybody. They also didn't make any trades. Obviously, they don't really have draft capital to trade for anyone. So
Yeah.
you just kind of have to hope that like, look, maybe the guys like Treylon Burks develops into a player for them for next year. Like some of these guys that they brought in, they brought the Drake Jackson kid, from the 49ers. He hasn't played yet. Maybe he comes in and becomes a guy. They need to start, in my opinion, that's what their next thing needs to be. It's like, who are the guys that are really going to be cornerstone players for us in the future? If you're not, like, we need to think about a way to get you out of here, get you on a new team, and we need to just really evaluate the guys who haven't played. So this is where, you start playing Jalen Namor, you start playing Kane Madrano, Ali Cajo. Like, you start to play some of these younger dudes and really say, hey, are you good or no? Because if you're not good, we need to change. If you're going to be good and be somebody that we can really, hold on to and embrace, that we will. Because they need to take this seriously, So
Yeah. And I need to also emphasize something.
yeah.
Going back to AP.
Last thing before we kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
But going back to AP, because everybody right now is texting me talking about why didn't he do anything? What's going on? What's happening? Why didn't he do anything? Why didn't he make a move?
Yeah.
And the thing is like, you got to think about this. His tenure of making trades, we saw that he traded right when I started reporting for the team. We saw that he traded Jahan Dotson. Everybody was like, what? Oh, my gosh. He won a ring in Philly. Whatever. Then he traded draft picks in 2024. Okay. Fast forward. Then he traded for Debo, Laramie Tunsil, and Marshawn Lattimore in that same year. Yeah. Right? Okay. And then this year he traded B-Rob and re-signed Terry. So, do I feel like in some way he did a terrible job? No. But at the same time, you got to look at the circumstance today. And you got to look at, too, like, the trades between the Colts and the Jets. These are teams, like we talked about earlier offline. Like, the Jets traded people away that they saw were not a good fit. So now, that gives the Colts a certain advantage of like, okay, well, we're going to get what we need because we're having a good season.
Yeah.
Fine. But at the same time, everybody's like, oh, AP wasn't aggressive with his picks today. He wasn't aggressive. How aggressive do you want him to be when there's really not too much to put out there?
They just don't have that, and that's really what it is. The difference is that the Jets, who I think won the trade deadline, to be honest, because they traded guys and got a lot of good picks in return.
Absolutely.
The Commanders don't have a guy that they could trade for those same kind of compensations.
They don't,
right? Like,
unless it was Debo. And then there were talks
and even
about
Debo, Debo wouldn't have got you a ton. Andrew Wiley
he
probably would have
have
got you like a 6 or 7. Like these
and
guys
that would
are
also
not.
Have been dumb.
You don't. The only person that would have got you real capital is like literally like Jayden. I mean, honestly, think about anybody else that would have got you a first round pick. No one, because Terry's hurt. Even if you would have thought maybe Terry's not getting you a first rounder because one, they just signed him for a huge contract, and plus, he's over 30, and he is hurt. So that's not another person. So even if you thought about Terry, that's not it.
Some teams just don't like the buyout for Terry.
Yeah,
they didn't like that at all.
Even Deron Payne is a great player, right? Deron Payne's on his next year's his last year of his contract. So even if you traded for Deron Payne away, you're probably getting like a 4th. You're not getting any first round pick. You're not getting that. So there's no one that they really could have got that would have really made. There's no trade that they could have really made that would have made people super happy.
The thing is too, we don't know what AP
maybe
was
Tunsil.
doing.
Maybe Laramie Tunsil, but you need Tunsil to protect Jayden. You know what I mean? But go ahead.
But also, too, as much as we have sort of what people like to say an inside scoop, at the same time, we still don't even know what AP was calling around for today. Even if he was calling around for it, what he was even doing calling around at all.
We don't know anything.
We don't know.
That's the thing.
We only know
that's why,
what's being, But
that's why the people on Twitter, we shouldn't be listening to them too much.
Yeah, no, we shouldn't.
One knows.
But at the same time, I also want to be here to help fans understand that, certain things happen for a reason. It's not even to be like, oh, AP. Now, granted, I do feel like there maybe have been some future thoughts, in terms of, maybe, getting some things to go through. I'm not necessarily going to say that Debo was the guy that you should have put out there. I mean, Andrew Wiley wasn't exactly a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But at the same time, AP can't really do much if another team tells him no. So at the end of the day, it's like it didn't happen. Nothing happened today. The only thing that happened is that they signed Traylon Burks to the active roster, and that's what they're going to have to deal with. That's what they're going to have to deal with until they can find a way to get back their draft capital. That's the only way.
Or just rock with the capital they have and go hard in free agency next year.
That too.
The point, because they are in the top 3 of salary cap space as of right now. But ultimately,
Yeah.
look, let's end here because
Yeah. A
it's
lot.
clear they got to do a lot of things to change what's going on for this team, and
Right.
no one's happy about what's happened. And it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, there are some good pieces on this team. I think that my biggest thing is maybe evaluating the coaching staff and seeing if they're putting them in the right places.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the
Oh,
years.
and
It's
to
kind of wrap.
mention real
Yeah.
quick about the
Last
coaching
thing.
staff,
Yeah.
Joe Witt Jr. will be on that field. He will not be in the box this week. He will be on
Yeah.
that field.
I mean, I'm glad you mentioned it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it makes a difference. I'll be
Okay.
honest. I don't. I'm not
I'm
saying
still
that. Maybe.
50-50
Maybe
on it.
I don't know. I know that like they're making that change, and maybe they're hoping that people would get excited. That didn't excite me at all. Like it
And
didn't.
I'm not
It's
going to
not
say
that
that
I'm
it was
saying that it couldn't.
exciting,
Yeah.
but I will say, I appreciate some sort of change because at
Yeah.
this point, it's kind of a desperate state. I'm not saying that like it's the best thing since sliced bread. Like that's going to be the best thing that's going to make them win. No, but I do feel like let's see the difference here. Let's see the difference in what this makes for this team. Let's
Yeah.
just see,
Yeah.
and it could work. It may not work, but at the same time, I at least appreciate that they are trying to do something. It may not be the
Agreed.
biggest thing in
No,
the
I
world,
agreed.
but
They're
at
not
least they have
quitters.
done something because to
They're
be
not
honest,
quitters.
if they go into another week with no changes, like despite the injuries, at this point, we know that the team is injured. Let's move forward. And what are we
Yeah.
doing now? And see, that kind of goes back to my question with Dan Quinn because it's like, how do you approach and address your team? And he said, we have to make those changes. And our performance was unacceptable. And I can appreciate that. In all honesty, as much as people can say that those are lame excuses, he has nothing else to excuse. So,
We'll
we're
see.
just going to have to wait and
We'll
see.
see. I do like changes. I do like things being adjusted, but there's going to be. I just think there needs to be more than just Joe Witt coming down. I just.
Yeah, they're best.
If anything, and usually you hear about the
It's a
guy going
start.
up. Usually the coaches go from being down to going up. I think he's going to be harder to see what's going on in the field, being down on the field. Usually you go up because you can see what's going on. I don't know, but either
I don't
way,
know.
it
Maybe
is what it
being
is.
in their faces. I don't
Maybe
know.
maybe
We'll
the
see.
energy.
We'll
He can bring
see.
some energy.
I'm
I
not
don't
gonna
know.
say
We'll
that's the
see.
biggest move because, to
We'll
be honest,
see.
when I first heard it, I was like, okay, interesting, but also at the same time, I'm still kind of like, how is that going to help the ability?
Yeah,
And
100%.
that's the thing. It's
But
like
look,
maybe, but
yeah.
we'll see.
Anyways, look, we're gonna wrap it up there. I think the biggest thing that we wanted to talk about at the end of this is that
Yes.
Wizards have started Howard basketball. We were at the Howard basketball game last night.
We were.
They struggle with Missouri, but it was a good Missouri team. We do think that they're going to be pretty good
Mizzou.
this year. Mizzou, exactly.
He said
basically-
Missouri.
I mean, Missouri is their actual name, but if we want to go with
I like the
little,
Mizzou. Like, let's go with what's on the paper. Mizzou.
I mean, if you want to be politically correct, it's Missouri.
I mean, it is Missouri, but
Look, she
I,
just
I
likes
like
to be
to.
combative with me. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, but anyway, but honestly,
No, okay, but
I mean-
yeah, we do think that they're going to be pretty good. The Wizards, we want to talk Wizards. We cover the Wizards.
Yes.
We cover other teams. This channel is not only going to be dedicated to Commanders. We've been talking a lot
Yes.
about Commanders, but ultimately there's a lot of other sports that are going on in the area.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that we cover that.
we
Obviously,
wanna get a
please,
cover on that for
if
sure.
people have any thoughts on what we should talk about, obviously reaching out to us. I know some people reach out through Twitter, through Instagram. Obviously, leave comments on this video on YouTube also. Like, subscribe. It always helps us out. We're just
Yes.
happy to be here, happy to talk about sports, and we're going to continue to keep grinding. Even
Yes.
though the season is not working out the way we thought, we're just hoping that things can change, and we're going to be here to cover it regardless of the way it goes.
Yeah. Also, guys, don't fight me, okay? Because Twitter. Look, I'm still learning how to
Twitter is
navigate
crazy.
the Twitter space, and like, I'm an Instagram person, so if you DM me, I'm gonna be like, hey, like, what's going on? But Twitter is just like a whole different
People
island.
are angry. People are angry on Twitter. That's all I'll say. So DM me on Instagram because you guys seem to be more chill on Instagram than Twitter.
But even then,
But, yeah.
I mean, some of the same people that have been messaging me on Twitter have Instagram. So I mean, The thing about it is too is it's like for Twitter, people have been DMing me, and I thought that I was texting people back and realizing
Yeah.
that I left people unopened. So
Yeah.
excuse
Yeah.
me and apologize. I'm still trying to figure out this whole Twitter space because I just discovered that Twitter has live rooms where you could sit in with other accounts and
Yeah.
chat.
Yeah. I've
I'm
seen
getting to
those
know
too.
all these
Yeah.
different things.
A
Okay,
lot of
you
different
can
things
run live
happening.
streams on Twitter. I'm like connected from Twitch or YouTube. I'm like, what is going on?
A
Like
lot
this
of
is a
things.
lot.
A lot of things. We're still learning. We're still
Yeah, but
figuring it
real
out.
quick before we end, y'all, ask him how his fantasy is going.
All right, so we're gonna end the game. We're gonna end this right now. We don't need to talk about we don't need to talk about another team that's doing poorly and
Fantasy
undervaluing.
football.
I don't want to hear it. I literally tied with my opponent this week, and I'm struggling
That's
to get a
not
win.
bad.
And I lost.
That's
No,
not
I
bad.
lost because he had more bench points than me, and it's just been I lost my. I had Jayden. I lost my fantasy quarterback. This is a rough year. Well, let's not talk
Wait,
about
who's
it.
your
We're done.
backup?
It might have to be Mariota now. I got to find one. I don't even have a backup quarterback.
You don't.
No,
you
we're gonna get. We
find
don't have
a
time.
backup?
We don't have time to get into this. We don't have time. Trust me. I could go on a rant
Guys, text
for
him on Twitter
another
who he
half
should
an hour.
get. Text him on
Another half
Twitter
an
who
hour.
he should get. Text him on Twitter.
There's not
who
a
he
lot of
should
people
get.
out there I can grab. Anyways,
Text him on
look.
Twitter.
Thank you guys for tuning in. For those who are here, we appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, keep supporting us. We love all the people who've been there with us, whether it's on Instagram, Twitter, here. We appreciate you greatly. We got more big things coming for Win Sports, and we'll keep you updated on that.
Yes.
Thank you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, peace out.